formally where the regulation suggests we begin with your taking an oath or giving an affirmation before the committee as to the evidence that you will give. The clerk will instruct you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brathwaite. Would you prefer to take the oath or affirm?
The oath.
Okay, hold the Bible in your right hand and read the oath of the witness, please.
Turn the microphone on.
The evidence that I shall give before the committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Former Minister Brathwaite is with you as your
Counsel,
counsel.
legal counsel.
All right. All right, let's begin by having you give to us your name and your business name, address, etc., so we can establish that for the record.
My name is Lloyd Brathwaite.
You can pull the microphone closer to you, you're more comfortable. Yeah.
My name is Lloyd Brathwaite. I'm the Managing Director, Transtech Incorporated. We're an automotive parts and service company located at Kennel Hill, Christchurch.
You are aware, Mr. Brathwaite, of the concerns raised in the Auditor General's report, which is the subject of focus for this committee?
Yes, sir.
Relative to Transtech and repairs, etc.?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, you're prepared, therefore, to respond to the questions from members of the committee?
Yes, first of all,
Anybody wants to go?
I want to thank the committee for having me here, and I'm going to be as frank as possible with you and forthcoming.
Appreciate that. Senators, anybody? Ministers, senators, anybody? Mr. Brathwaite, would it be true to say that you had entered Transtech, that is a contract with the Transport Board over the matter of bus repairs and issues relative to provision and supply of transmissions?
Yes, sir.
Would you want to tell us about the terms of the contract, when you entered into the contract, and what were some of the terms of the contract?
Yes, sir. In 2008, we were invited to the Transport Board by its management and some of the directors to address a very urgent matter that they had. At that time, there were 99 vehicles, buses off the road. Out of a total fleet at that time of 297. Sir, I have the empirical information here, data, as submitted by the Quality Assurance Manager on the 8th of July, 2008, which I'll submit to you a copy.
Okay, we'd appreciate that very, very much.
Yeah.
Can you suggest or advise us as to how soon we'll be able to have the benefit
Well, if
of a
it can be
look at
photocopied today, I would hand it over to you.
Okay,
I only have the original one here.
okay. Yes, Senator?
Thank you, Chairman. I believe that well, let me start first by saying thank you, Mr. Brathwaite, not just for being here, but also for your declaration of a willingness to be open, and I think that's much appreciated by all of us. I wanted to make reference to your reference to the report by the Quality Assurance Department of the Barbados Transport Board at the time. And I really wanted to direct my question to the Auditor General because the report speaks extensively about a number of challenges found in that quality assurance report and the lack of information supplied to management and the board of directors in terms of oversight. And I would want him to elaborate on what the key findings were in the auditor's report of the Quality Assurance Department.
Well, some of the key findings related to the frequency of the transmission changes that we observe. We did not do an audit of the quality assurance department per se, but of the repairs and the maintenance that, and the invoices that we observe related to the transmission changes, et cetera. And then we observed a number of these invoices, which were buses having the same work being carried out, the invoice having the same date, and then the invoice of a different number.
Could you give your name and you speak for the record, please?
Okay, Nigel Gibson, Senior Auditor.
And position, right. Well, you had a follow-up, Senator, on that matter?
The Auditor General's report spoke about those findings, and it spoke about the frequency of repairs, including on the same vehicles for which there were invoiced. And one of the recommendations made here was that that frequency ought to have triggered an investigation as to why that was happening. Can you make any comment on that, since Mr. Brathwaite spoke about the quality assurance report?
We did not find any evidence, and neither did Transport Board provide any evidence that they had conducted an investigation on the frequency of these repairs, which we thought that should have happened, saying that maintenance is a major component of their expenditure.
And my final question, Chairman, is that the report also goes on to make reference to the absence of these frequent maintenance changes ever engaging the attention of either management or the board of directors. There's no evidence of them having been treated to at the level of the board. Is that correct?
That is correct. I haven't observed any in the board minutes that we reviewed. And this is after, we didn't review from 2008. This is like around to 2015 onwards.
All right. Thank you, Senator. We'll also ask, when you speak, please get the microphone as comfortably close to you as you can so that you may be clearly heard. Mr. Brathwaite, you were telling me about the contract. You were telling us about the contract and how you got into that and some of the terms associated with that contract to do these repairs for the Transport Board. 2008, you were invited to address the management, and there were 99 buses out of a fleet of
297.
There were 99 on the road or off?
On 99 buses that were defective.
99 out of 290, you said?
Yes.
Okay. How was it you were chosen to come in to address the management? Was it you, or were there others invited, so to do?
I believe, I have a quote from the report. Sir, I quote, "The board service providers, United Commercial Auto Works Limited, Simpson Motors, and L&N Workshop are notified of the crucial role and the required manpower that is needed in this exercise to have the 99 defective buses returned to active service. However, the management of the board is seeking some methodology and alternative from the automotive industrial sector that has the expertise in commercial and heavy-duty equipment repairs to assist the board with its maintenance repair program. There will be a phased approach to each bus as it relates to diagnostic requirements that are needed to troubleshoot the causes of each minor defect, which represents the most challenge. Engines and transmissions are based on standard requirements which required less troubleshooting to ascertain the cause of the defect. The estimated time to complete this program is approximately 7 months. The board service providers are asked to give priority to the units allocated to each entity: United Commercial Auto Works Limited, Simpson Motors, and L&N Workshop," end quote.
If I understand what you make reference to in that report, there were many buses off the road, It's a matter of urgency which needed to be addressed in particular ways. Reference is made to Simpson,
LNN.
N,
Yeah, I'll give you a copy of
as well
LNN.
as UCAL.
Commercial, yeah, auto
Okay.
works.
These entities have been working with the Transport Board up until this time.
Yeah, continually, but they
You
had
were now
issues.
a newcomer
That's right, a
to
new
the
service
field.
provider, yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to get at is why were you chosen? Are there further alternative entities out there, additional entities out there who may have been interviewed or requested to make a presentation, as far as you're aware? Was there a process out of which you were selected to be an additional player in the business of repairs for the Transport Board?
Okay, let me put it clear. We are a transmission company. We deal with transmission. We deal with heavy-duty equipment. We deal with that there. There are others that came on board during that time, other companies, not just Transtech. Other companies came on board. But our specialist area is transmissions. We're transmission people.
Thank you, Chair. My question is quite straightforward. You make reference, Mr. Brathwaite, to 99 buses being non-operational at the time that you came into a service contract with the Transport Board. Can you tell us how many buses Transtech worked on, how many transmissions you provided, and give us an idea of the scope and scale of work for the period that you were engaged?
Well, thank you, ma'am. I don't have the amount it is, but there is a considerable amount that we worked on. I don't have the exact amount that we worked on, but we worked on a lot of, especially a particular type of transmission at the Transport Board that was continually giving trouble.
Would it have been anywhere near the 99 or more than half of the 99?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to that there. But because, in addition to that there, which I did not see in the Auditor General report, is the frequency of engine failures. Engine failures outstrip transmission failures, sometimes 2 to 1. But nothing is mentioned of this here in his report. Nothing.
Are you saying that in addition to the transmission repairs requested of your company, there were engine failures that you addressed as well?
We are not engine people, but engines was a major consideration when we were brought to the Transport Board also, not just transmissions, engines. And we have 3 reports here, one from the Quality Assurance Department, one from the consultant engineer that they brought in, 2 from the consultant engineers, and all state clearly the volume of work and the volume of failures were related to engines. And nothing is mentioned of the engines here, nothing in this report.
But did Transtech address any of the engine issues?
We may have addressed some, but not in a large scale, because our main focus was the transmission.
I think there were a couple of other issues coming out of Minister Cattle's question that perhaps you should go on to.
Thank you, Mr. Brathwaite. It is the matters in the report that are of concern to us have to do with the frequency of the replacement of transmissions, the related invoicing and quality assurance to make sure when those vehicles were returned that they were in good working order and ready to be put back on the road for the traveling public to be safe and to be assured of service. It's therefore a bit difficult for us to fill gaps in the report or to get more information if we are not clear. And I would have imagined that your records would have been able to provide that information to us in terms of exactly how did Transtech, based on the scope of services that would have been outlined in whatever contractual arrangements you had with the Transport Board, exactly how you were able to contribute to addressing the transmission issues. You did mention the 99 buses that were non-operational. What I'm trying to help my colleagues on the committee understand is how did Transtech contribute to addressing that problem that you found and that you were presumably engaged to address. It is a little bit difficult not to have any information at all in terms of exactly what, how many vehicles were worked on, how many transmissions. You've said that you are in the transmission business. How many transmissions you replaced within what period? Is there some record somewhere that can be provided to this committee?
Yes, ma'am, the Transport Board would have all of that information. And I can tell you for the 10 years we've worked on the transmissions, we've done several. Some weeks we would do 7, some weeks we do 12. It depends on the frequency of breakdowns of the transmission.
I'm sure the Transport Board would have a record of those. Would your company not also keep record of
Yeah, we
these?
have invoices.
Could any of that information be made available to us?
Yes, sir, we would try to reconstruct it, but there'd be several invoices, yeah.
You'll try to reconstruct it?
Yeah, put everything together.
Okay. In what time frame do you anticipate we'll be able to get that?
I don't know, depends on the staff, because you're talking about going back from 2008 to present, I would say.
Well, actually, 2015 would suffice.
2015, good. Let me make note of that.
Because this report makes reference to 2015, 2017.
2015,
Quite a number of repair instances
yeah.
referenced between 2015, 2017, 18. So if you could provide us with that information, I think Minister Cattle is saying that'll help the committee. Well, if you can go about 2008, it's fine, but 2015, 2017 would be enough. 2018, sorry. 2018. 2018.
Mr. Brathwaite, just trying to think like the normal person that I am, and I'm wondering if there's a situation, you spoke to the frequency of breakdowns. Well, we are examining transmissions, you introduced the matter of engines, but I want to find out, as it relates to transmissions, would a mechanic, that's the term that I know, or transmission engineer, I'm not sure what the term is, but if a typical mechanic sees high frequencies of breakdowns, is that something you would bring to the attention of your client normally?
Yes, sir, that is something that we would draw to the attention of the quality assurance or the engineering department. That's a good question, yeah.
Right. And did you do that?
Yeah, we had several meetings over the failures of the transmission. Actually, the transmission is a fail unit. It
Do you
has
have
problems.
any of that documented?
Well, yes, we would have correspondence to that effect.
Because what Minister Jordan is intimating, the frequency of repairs, especially with respect to some units, is striking. And the technical people and the mechanically inclined people, one would think would advise the company as to what the problem might be in terms of what is gendering these frequent repairs. So I think that's what, so if we can have some of the correspondence you sent to the board addressing that issue. Are you yourself, coming to you, Senator, are you yourself in a position to speak to us as to what might have occasioned those frequent repairs, frequency of repairs?
Yes, sir. Lack of maintenance as reported by the Auditor General. He did a good job on that, yeah, actually, from my perspective. The lack of maintenance, because you're talking about extreme duty vehicle, not your car that you just drive to work and park and get in, something that runs day and night all the time, 24/7. So therefore, you have something called enhanced maintenance, where you have to maintain the buses more. And a lot has to do with the topography in which the bus operates, whether it's working in the hilly side of Barbados, or it's just running to Silver Sands or running to Gazettes or something. It has to do with the individual bus and the amount of kilometers that the bus accumulate over time. That all of those factors play into maintenance, and that is done by quality assurance, not by us. All we do is fix the transmissions. Thereafter, we don't get involved with the bus.
But you're saying that from the service provider point of view or perspective, the frequency of repairs necessary for transmissions, especially on certain units, is indicative clearly of a very bad maintenance program. In other words, the transport board wasted a lot of money. You hear me, right? You're saying the transport board wasted a lot of money even though you earned it. The transport board wasted a lot of money by its poor maintenance program with reference to these buses.
The John did a job of that you can extract what he's getting at. When he spoke about the amount of kilometers that the buses are doing and the lack of maintenance of the buses, which reflect on two grounds. One, the inavailability of spare parts, the inavailability of rolling stock. So whereas a bus would have to come off the road every 2 months to be maintained because of the mere sheer demand of having a unit in a particular location to move the general public, they put the buses back on the road. And the buses weren't getting the kind of maintenance that was required by the manufacturer.
Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brathwaite. I think you started to answer a question that I was going to follow up on, because in the report, including at Appendix 1, it talks about the frequency of repairs. I want to draw your attention to paragraph 2.23 on page 19 of the report, where it says, in total, 14 buses were observed with high frequency of transmission changes, some of which occurred within 6 months. The related reconditioned transmissions installed for those 14 buses cost $1.75 million. So I want to ask you two things. One, what role do you think the maintenance schedule to which you just referred, given that very short time period of 6 months, played in the frequent changes to these 14 buses in particular? And two, the second question, which is drawn from, I believe it is page 14 of the document, which spoke about the quality of the transmissions, whether they were original parts or they were reconditioned parts. If you could answer both questions, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The frequency of maintenance is driven by several considerations. The first one is the amount of miles or hours the buses accumulate. But if you look carefully in the Auditor General's report, he would indicate to you that the odometers were not working. So therefore, you would have to go on hours or time. Simple as that. Excuse me. Also, the transmissions that we installed are factory reconditioned transmissions. They're reconditioned transmissions. The manufacturers have stopped manufacturing that particular unit in 2003. It's no longer produced, so you can't buy a new one. I'm aware that when the consultant came in from Trinidad, that he recommended buying used remanufactured transmission out of the United States to fill that short gap, which is obviously cheaper than the ones that we supply. Except there's a big difference. The transmissions that we supply for the buses at the Transport Board carry something called a built-in brake retarder. You can Google it and see what it's all about. Easy Google it. It's a built-in brake retarder. It's specifically made for the Brazilian market. What it is an auxiliary brake. In other words, if you're going down a hill with load, the buses on the load is about 13.5 tons. If you're going down gravity 0 to 10, say for instance, you're going down Horse Hill or one of those hills, and the brakes fail, the retarder pulls back the engine. Is akin to backing down a vehicle. The transmissions that are coming in from the United States, don't fool yourself, do not carry brake retarders. I had this discussion with the consultant that they brought in, Mr. Bartholomew. He told me to do it in Trinidad. I said, Skipper, Barbadian standards are much higher.
So you are suggesting that the difference in costs between the imported transmissions and those you supply, the difference is to be explained in what you're saying?
Not only that, is explained even further. The service provider who also repairs transmissions, in addition to Transtech, in the report here by the quality assurance, they were charging more than us to repair transmission in 2008. More than us. I don't know if the Auditor General look at this. Furthermore, they get 30% duty. They do not pay duty on parts that they're bringing for the transport board. We pay duty on our parts that we bring, 30%. They don't pay duty on it. Our labor charge and our labor rates have not changed since 2008. Furthermore, only this year, their special project manager came to us and gave us an ultimatum. He said, you either drop your labor rate to $80 an hour from 110, or you don't get any more business. After consultation with my staff, I decided to bite the bullet and get to work at $80 an hour. This is a fact of life.
Yes, Senator.
Part of the question, Mr. Braffett, that I wanted to ask was already asked by Senator Cummings, but just as a follow-up, I just wanted to ask you two little questions. One, were you only employed to install transmissions, or were you actually also selling and installing transmissions? And if so, were the transmissions that you were selling, were they also reconditioned, or were they new transmissions?
Sir, thank you for the question. Sir, we did other work with the transport board other than the transmissions on the buses, but our main focus was transmissions. The transmissions are rebuilt. Everything in them are changed and they're completely rebuilt. Indeed, most buses coming into our yard come in on a wrecker or tow truck. They never drove into the yard. They leave their driving, a testing officer or vehicle examiner, test it, give it the bill of okay, and then it's returned to transport board. We don't get them driving into our yard.
So would you normally give some sort of guarantee or warranty or something that, you know, when you do some maintenance work that on a transmission, that at least it would last, you know, assuming that it is maintained as it is expected to, that it should last for some, you know, period of time without any further work? I'm asking that because obviously of the frequency of having to replace some of those transmissions.
Right, thank you for the question. Yes, we give warranty on everything. We have a responsibility to give warranty to the public, not only just to the transport board, to everybody who does business with us. We give a warranty. The transport board is given a 3 months or 10,000 kilometer warranty. But sometimes the buses accumulate more miles, but you can't tell because the odometers are not working as indicated by the Auto Journal. You can't tell that. So you have to go on months. You have to go on time rather than kilometers and determine then if the warranty is enforced. And some things that occur with the buses are out of warranty, not in warranty. There's some matters that are covered in the warranty and some matters that are not covered within the warranty.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Braffett, you're basically, from your statements, indicating that the Transport Board clearly did not do a good job at that time and clearly needed to, they made poor decisions based on what you're saying. But I do have a question, having heard all of this, and that is, it relates to the work done by you, and clearly, as you said, the quality assurance department clearly had some issues, as well as other departments. Because I did note that there seemed to have been a situation because the transmissions seemed to be repaired continuously. You repair it, it breaks back down again, you repair it, on and on. I see that there was some invoicing done, and perhaps that's why this may have occurred, with this repeated having to repair something that might have been repaired previously. I don't know. Maybe you could shed some light on it. It appears that according to the Auditor General's report, and I'm referencing page 20, 2.25 for your reference, there are some cases, 4 to be exact. There may have been more, because certainly in an audit, you may not always get all of the instances where there may be an issue. but certainly they discovered in 4 cases, and I'm not saying those are the only ones, I don't know, but where there seemed to have been some double invoicing and overpayments, totaling just under $130,000. So based on all these issues that you've articulated here today, I'm just trying to find out, do you know what has happened with that over-invoicing and what provisions have been made with regard to that, if any at all? And can you say, perhaps, to the best of your knowledge, how this occurred?
Yes, ma'am. With respect to the invoicing or over-invoicing, the invoicing here, because our invoices and our costs remain the same. Our labor cost is $1,800 to install a transmission, if you look at our invoice. And that was the same from 2008 till present. That's what we charge. That's all we charge. We are under the other person that competes with us, who is never mentioned in the report for obvious reasons. They would know best. But their charge is $3,200. We charge $1,800 labor to install, to remove and replace a transmission. That's what we charge, and we have always charged that. Now, with respect to these invoices that you refer to, that we had already begun the process of discussion after the Auditor General report on this issue to reconciliate them to have the matter resolved. We already started the process with the Transport Board on this matter, the Management and Transport Board.
And I just as a follow-up, since you have been so meticulous in doing that, and I applaud you for that, can you say if in your investigations to address this matter, if you discovered any other instances where this double invoicing may have occurred?
Ma'am, these are errors, and these happen in any invoicing transactions, and have not. We also look for a pattern. We also look to see if there was a pattern that was established in dealing with these invoices, and none has been. It's just an error. This here happens, remind you, these are dated in 2014 and in 2016 respectively. There'll always be issues with invoicing one way or the other.
But the question was a specific one. Did you discover any other instances besides these 4 during your due diligence?
No, ma'am.
A question on the same matter. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Another couple simple questions for you, Mr. Brathwaite. One has to do with, and again, I come back to really the scope of works. What was the level of responsibility for your company? Did you have any diagnostic role? So that is to say, when the vehicles came to you, were you instructed of the task that you needed to carry out, meaning that you were advised this vehicle has a transmission issue, you need to please replace or repair the transmission? Or did you have the function of being presented with a vehicle that was non-operational for some purpose that you were asked to diagnose and then respond to? That's one. And another very simple one, what triggered the payment of invoices on the part of the Transport Board? To your knowledge, and let me explain a bit. You mentioned a testing officer that once you were finished working on the vehicle, would test the vehicle and make sure that it was performing. We note from the report that the same was not done on the quality assurance side by the Transport Board. Therefore, are you aware of what, from the Transport Board side, and I realize it's not your responsibility, but I'm simply asking if you are aware, are you aware of what would have triggered from the Transport Board payment of an invoice submitted by you?
Ma'am, thank you very much. We are given instructions by way of a work order, instructed by the quality assurance as to what is the nature of the job and what needs to be done. So we take instructions from the quality assurance. I'm trying just to find. Yeah, I'll try to reconstruct what happened. The transport board sends us a vehicle, a work order. I'm looking for one here, I had them somewhere. And the work order would specifically state what is to be done. Replace transmission, repair brake retarder, a transmission leak, repair store converter on transmission. So we carry those instructions. After the vehicle is completed,
Would it be easy for you to locate a work order relative to one of these repair instances, one of these buses cited by Minister Moore, page 20 of the report? 4 or 5 buses there, relative to a double invoicing?
yes, Mr. Chairman, but we don't have it here. As I told you before, it's not a double invoice that we did.
But you'll be able to locate a work order relative to?
Yes, sir.
And you could provide us with that as well?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a related question? Oh, sorry.
Just to remind you of the second question, because I realized that both were long. What triggered the payment of your invoice on the part of?
I'm not sure, but I know we don't get paid till probably 9 months after, or maybe in some cases a year and a half. I know it's a struggle. Several letters we have to write to the transport board, literally begging cap in hand, so that we don't have to send home our staff. It's not a massive company. It may appear so, but it's not that huge. We're very fragile.
Just a quick follow-up by way of clarification. In most cases, when an individual or a company are contracted to carry out works or services, that individual or company understands what is the trigger for payment, whether it takes 9 months or a year and a half. What is the trigger? Meaning, how does that entity satisfy itself that this work is completed that would therefore trigger? I'm just asking whether you are aware of such a trigger or that one existed.
Okay, after a job is completed, a batch of invoices are prepared like once a month. And then the office manager makes arrangements with the quality assurance manager, and he goes through the job sheets and the orders and tie them on to the invoices, and then they go through the process, the accounting process at the transport board. That's how it works. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Minister Cullen.
My question, Mr. Brathwaite, is it ties with what we were saying. What I want to find out, you mentioned job sheets just now for the first time. My question was, what is the process in your company for preparing and issuing invoices? You have said that work orders come from the Transport Board's Quality Assurance Department. If you could take us from that to where you got to just now, where the invoices are sent to the Transport Board. What is your internal process?
Right, sir. Our internal process is that a vehicle comes up with a work order to us to repair transmission and have it back on the road as soon as possible. As soon as we finish it, our turnaround time is normally like around 3 days for transmission. Transmission is ready. We alert quality assurance that we're ready for delivery. Quality assurance collects the bus, test drives the bus on the road. Once the testing officer is satisfied with it, he takes it back to the transport board. The transport board quality assurance do further tests to find out if the job has been carried out satisfactorily. If there's an issue with it, it's returned back to us to address that issue.
Right, I'm speaking to something more specific about your accounting process. You get a work order from the Transport Board along with a record in your yard. So you have the physical bus and you have a work order which says what is wrong with it. How do you generate your invoices? Was it based on?
Right, it's based on the input. The labor is usually fixed, as I told you. Labor is usually fixed. And then the transmission itself and related components, like filters, hoses, and so on, are added to the invoice.
Right, so that person who prepares the invoice,
Yes.
what information does that person use to prepare the invoice?
She gets the information from the installing mechanic and from the parts supervisor. Right, she would be a clerk, like a billing clerk. So she take all that information and put it together.
Is there any reference in her work or that person's work to the work order that would have been received from the transport board?
Yes, all the billing invoices have the work order number. The work orders carry a number on them, so they're tied to the invoices.
When the work order is attached to the information that comes from your workshop and parts department, that information is collated, so to speak, and an invoice prepared.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but the reason why I'm asking is because I'm still on the matter of the double invoicing and trying to work out in my mind how, if a work order comes to you and is addressed, that is to say the bus is put into your workshop, it is worked on by your mechanics, parts are taken from your store, how does your billing clerk end up using the same information to generate another invoice after that information has already been used to create an invoice?
Yes, sir. I see these as errors. I wasn't there. This is something that was only brought to my attention this year, a few months ago, after the Auditor General report came out. I was called to a meeting at the Transport Board, and these things were brought to me. So don't forget, they're dated. You're talking about 2014, 2016. So we try to search for those invoices and bring back everything together. And you must bear in mind that the Transport Board is not our only customer. We have other customers, so we have to try and get all this stuff together, which we try to extract.
The one, I understand what you're saying in terms of dates and errors that can be, that can happen. The first one, bus 29, that jumps out at me because you have not just the transport board as a client, you have many clients. However, how many customers? The two invoices for bus number 29 are the same date and are sequential, one right after the other. So it suggests to me that in a busy operation, the same information is used to generate an invoice and also to generate an invoice immediately after. And the reason why I'm asking that is I'm not really questioning whether you knew before or not. I am asking a question that speaks to your accounting system. Senator Moore had asked initially if you'd found any others, but this suggests, even as opposed to some of the others where the numbers are pretty far apart, the invoice numbers, this suggests that there is some fundamental challenge with the accounting system. If immediately after keying information for a work order and the related labor and parts, that the same thing is keyed immediately after. So I'm wondering, the question I'm asking you is if you have any concerns or may have had any concerns about your accounting system as it relates to this matter that you found out about a few months ago.
We're trying to put systems in place. Nothing is perfect. We believe that mistakes may have occurred. We're working on it. We're working through it. As we met with the Transport Board to do reconciliation and look at the accounts and see how better we can improve ourselves.
Chair, just on this same matter, because like my colleague, but I am a little, confused. So you may need to walk me through it, just so I can understand it for myself. Because I'm trying to figure out why you would have an invoice number 69419 on the 13th of May. And they have an invoice 69453, many invoices away, on the identical date. But yet you have an invoice number 69468 on the 11th of August within that same year. But 6943, that was generated earlier, and then you have 6948 generated on the 11th, and then all up in 69480 on the same 11th, but then you come back and you have 69498 on the 23rd. It seems to me, I'm not sure what kind of accounting they're doing, but it doesn't seem that the invoicing and the numbers are perhaps in a manner that would suggest that there's going to be a reliability to it. That's my first question. And my second question is related to a comment you made earlier, and in that you said when I inquired as to the $128,000 and change that was over invoiced, if any, what was being done about it, what arrangements had been made. So this question, Chair, with your permission, is really directed at the Auditor General's office, because you said you made an arrangement with them with regard to this money. So I don't know, one, Mr. Brathwaite, and then two, after, perhaps the Auditor General could shed some light on what these arrangements are that have been made by Mr. Brathwaite and them for this $128,574.54.
We had started the process of reconciliation and negotiating the accounts and so on. We have not completed the process. We have started it. We were invited to a meeting and we had started the process. You talked about our accounting system. I have a lot of confidence in our accounting system. Service well is not perfect, but I have confidence in it.
Nice, so Mr. Brathwaite, and I just want to point this out to you, just so you could clearly see it, because I think you have the page there in front of you, don't you? Because if you, I'm speaking about the same double invoicing, because I just want to make this clear so you can see it for yourself, because I'm just, as I said, a little confused. Because I want to know how an invoice number 69498 is generated on the 23rd of September, and then you get invoice 69480 generated on the, looks like the 11th of August. This could be, yeah, but in reference to the arrangements, perhaps you can shed light on what arrangements have been made. If not, perhaps the Auditor General's office, because you said you made arrangements with them, perhaps either you or they may be able to tell us what the arrangements are.
Let's be clear. I was called to a meeting at the, nothing to do with the Auditor General, I was called to a meeting at the Transport Board by the acting General Manager and Financial Controller, Ms. Sue. And she pointed out the discrepancies with the invoices that the Auditor General pointed out. And we had started the process. I told her that we would get back to her and see what's going on from our side, because you must bear in mind these are dated invoices, these invoices going back to 2014. So we would have to go and look in our files and see what has gone wrong and so on. And I must bear in mind we don't really pay ourselves. If there's an issue arising, these invoices go through so much checks and balances that I believe on both sides something would have gone wrong. It would have been some error or something that had went wrong on both sides, because the Transport Board, these are not cash invoices, we have to wait to be paid. So this go through several processes, the invoices after we finish them. And if the Transport Board is not satisfied with the invoices, they call us in. They've called us in on several times to inquire what is going on here. So this is, I was really taken by surprise when I saw the invoices.
Thank you, Mr. Brathwaite. I think we'll probably come back to that for a few more questions a little later, but I want to go backwards a little bit to the question of repeated maintenance still. So on page 18 of the report, what is involved in lubrication and maintenance is defined. So for lubrication, you're talking about the changing of the various oils and lubrication of the relevant mechanical parts. And then for maintenance, you're talking about the checks of specific vehicle parts. So then when I move on then to page 36, having defined lubrication and maintenance in the way so defined at page 18, I'm drawn to the following statement being made by the Auditor General. He says, the board's quality assurance personnel indicated that a reconditioned transmission should last at least 2 years. I'm assuming, Mr. Brathwaite, that 2 years is dependent on adequate lubrication and maintenance schedules being observed.
That's correct, ma'am.
That's correct. Okay. So let's move on then. Having established that, and further on into the document, it establishes that the board acknowledged that their own procedures, nor the manufacturer's procedures, were being followed as it related to lubrication. But my attention is drawn where it says, invoices issued by the service provider during the period for the reconditioning of transmissions and the replacement of torque converters were analyzed for the frequency of these services, as this could have an adverse impact on the finances of the board. In total, the invoices seen related to work carried out on 178 buses. For those 178 buses, there were 601 transmission installations during the period. It would be expected that where transmissions were being installed at a high frequency, an investigation would have been conducted to determine the reasons. And I'm assuming that that investigation would have been carried out in the first instance by the Transport Board's Quality Assurance Department, and secondly, by the service provider who was providing those services. So it brings me to page 37 of the report. It says, for example, a bus had 5 transmissions installed within 19 months. 5 transmissions within 19 months for a transmission that is meant to last 24 months. Another bus had 4 within approximately 10 months, and yet another bus had 4 installations in 5 months. So if we agree, Mr. Brathwaite, that with maintenance, adequate lubrication, these transmissions are meant to last for 2 years, I would want to hear what your thoughts were on why within these very short spaces of time, with the absence of maintenance, these transmissions were being replaced, 1, and 2, as a service provider, what you were saying to the Transport Board about the maintenance of these buses. And then I'll bring one more thing to your attention, Mr. Brathwaite. It says, in each of these cases, the service provider did not charge for one of the installations, and you made reference earlier to your warranty procedures. So I wanted you to elaborate a little bit on that for us.
Yes, ma'am, thanks for the question. You're correct. The whole issue of availability and functionality of a vehicle, especially a commercial vehicle, extreme duty, has a lot to do with maintenance procedures. And these maintenance procedures are enhanced maintenance procedures. If you look at the Auditor General's report, he was quite clear and point out to you that the maintenance procedures were not adhered to. We don't have any control over that. We only deal with installing the transmissions, and that's it. I don't know if any of you would recall the complaints that the Transport Board had before we came in, that some of the new buses that leave the port broke down on their way to the dealer, and indeed broke down climbing a small hill like Cave Hill. The buses are not fit for purpose. The buses always had issues and always will have issues.
Is there any record, Mr. Brathwaite, of you giving clear advice to the Transport Board about your concerns with regard to the transmission maintenance?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you be able to share that with the committee?
I don't know if I have it here with me, but I can try to see if I can find it, because I try to bring it. We've been doing business with them for 10 years, so there's a lot of files, a lot of correspondence to and fro.
Okay, Chairman, I have one last follow-up question on that matter. It says, at page 37 at the bottom, it says, personnel at the board were asked about the high frequency of transmission changes and whether buses were checked by the Quality Assurance Department on return from a third-party service provider prior to being put back into service. And the report says personnel indicated that after buses were serviced, they should be checked on their return to ensure that they were adequately fixed, and if not, they would be sent back to be fixed at no cost. However, the audit was informed that sometimes buses were returned to service without being checked by quality assurance officers. I wanted to ask you about this in the context of your failure to charge for some of these installations, whether or not there were any challenges with the manufacturer, or if it was with regard to the quality assurance department not checking the buses once fixed.
Well, once a bus, ma'am, thanks again for the question. Once a bus fall within the warranty period, we would fix it with no charge. Once we find that there was a manufacturer defect or a labor defect from our side, we would change the transmissions. Yeah, that's a given. And I would hope that the members of this committee, indeed the Auditor's Journal, can see the most in-depth report here that I've seen from the Transport Board for the period May 2016 to 2017, the bus rehabilitation report. Indeed, an engine normally outlive a transmission 3 times. We have greater frequencies of engines here in this report. This is empirical data from the Transport Board Quality Assurance. And nothing is mentioned in the Auditor General's report. Very surprising. Not one mention of the engines, the transmission failures. And the failures were a huge part of it. 1 year we have 119 engine failures. But yet everybody is on transmissions, where engines were the main problem that the Transport Board had.
Chair, could I ask a question? Know that you've raised that, Mr. Brathwaite. Is there any connection? I'm asking this out of pure ignorance, because I don't know anything about mechanics and mechanical stuff. Is there or could there be any relationship between the functioning of a transmission and the functioning of an engine? Is there any relationship at all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Could one impact the other?
Yes, sir.
And how does it go? Which impact which, or can it be both ways?
It all has to do with heat. If the engine overheats, the way how these transmissions are cooled by the same coolant that cools the engine, it overheats the transmission.
Any impact is on the engine first and then on the
And
transmission?
then on the transmission after.
Okay.
The question for you, Mr. Brathwaite, so you don't have to talk too much. Answers can be very brief and direct. Did anybody at the Transport Board or anybody related to the Transport Board, insofar as you are aware, ever ask of you or your company a favor in order that you may be requested to provide service for the Transport Board?
No, sir.
Okay. And did you or anybody at your company ever ask anybody at the Transport Board or anybody related to the Transport Board for the privilege of working for the board in exchange for a favor?
No, sir. The board demanded was, indeed, when we withdraw services for lack of payment, the Transport Board still continue to bring the buses and pile them up in our yard. Most of the equipment that the Transport Board used to remove the wheels and so on, the first lift they ever had, they were working in pits. They asked me to upgrade the facilities for them so that they can do a more effective job. We provided that. Up to this day, they still use our tools and things for removing tires and so on.
Did the Transport Board ever send you any correspondence expressing a view that you were doing poor quality work?
Never, quite to the contrary. I have several letters here, recommendation from the Transport Board, from all the general managers, and everybody stating that they were very happy with what we do.
Can you provide us with a couple of copies of those letters?
Ma'am, I would be very, sir, I'd be very glad to. I have those copies here.
You mentioned earlier other service provider and others, you said other people who were allowed to charge more for obvious reasons. I didn't have a clue what you were talking about.
It's not, I didn't say for obvious reasons. I said for obvious reasons it was overlooked.
I seem to hear you suggest for obvious reasons other people were afforded the opportunity of charging higher fees.
No. I'm sorry, that's a misstatement if it was said. I withdraw that if I said that, Mr. Chairman.
And what exactly then are you saying?
What I'm saying is that the fact that other service providers were charging more than us for labor and transmissions, that nothing is mentioned of them. Furthermore, the engine failures were so excessive. In the report of the 2010, 61 engines, 2011, 46 engines, 2012, 34 engines, 2013, 119 engines. 119 engines is the report here. 2014, 41 engines. 2015, 39 engines. 2016, 21 engines. A total of 361 engines were replaced on those vehicles. And an engine usually outlasts a transmission.
And what time frame is that again?
From 2010 to 2016.
From 2010 to 2016, they replaced 361
This year.
engines?
Yeah. I suggest that you look at this, at the
But
report.
we've asked you to provide us, we're gonna ask the transport board too, but we've asked you to give us a copy of that.
Yeah.
Senator Moore, Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Brathwaite, you seem very well versed on the engine failures. So, and you seem to have quite a bit of documentation that speaks to the same. So, can you perhaps shed some light on, because you said that there were these large number of engine failures. You've suggested that the Auditor General failed to mention these in his report. I'm not sure what your suggestion as to the rationalization as to why that was done, because you made an inference, which I would prefer not to repeat. But would you care to shed some light on who was the person doing these engines and who you're speaking about? Since you have all that information on the engines, can you either tell me how many engines were done all over those among the years? You must know who was doing the engines. Perhaps you could let us know who did these engines that the Auditor General failed to report on.
What I was saying, I'm not sure if the Auditor General had the opportunity to see in the report. He didn't see it. He just noticed that he didn't see it.
Yeah, but you have the report, so.
Yeah, I have it.
so
That's what I'm going to
perhaps-
share with you all.
So perhaps would you like to would like to share it now as to who did these engines that the Auditor General failed to report on?
No, the report will speak for itself, ma'am. I'm not going to give.
You
that
don't wish to
information.
share it with us?
No,
Okay.
I don't want to call the company's name.
This report is a document which to some extent, you have it. It emanates from the transport board,
Yes, sir.
and you have it.
Yes.
So is a document which is public.
Yeah.
And if it makes reference to a service provider in relation to these engine issues, I don't see a problem with mentioning the name of the service provider, particularly if you're going to give us the report anyhow.
Thank you very much, Chair. I really just wanted to direct my question, in this case, to the Auditor General. Is there anything in your review of the operations of the Transport Board as it relates to the question of maintenance that is not included in the report before us that you would wish to bring to the committee's attention that will be relevant to this discussion?
At this point in time, I can't remember any other matters that would be relevant.
But, Chair,
Minister Kiat.
This is another small point. You would appreciate, Mr. Brathwaite, that my questions tend to be quite small and easy to answer. But it has to do with something that you mentioned in an earlier response that causes me to visualize the physical conditions in which your company was providing services to the Transport Board. You mentioned that to this day, the Transport Board still uses Transtech tools for doing repair work. Can you explain to us how that could come to be so?
Well, there were situations where the Transport Board did not have pneumatic tools and so on to remove the wheels from the buses or pneumatic jacks. So we provided those. Indeed, I can show you a letter here from the General Manager of Mr. Ian Jessamy, where he asked us to assist him with retooling the Transport Board.
And was there financial consideration given for this?
Yes, we tried to be paid for it, but we were never paid for them.
And there are related invoices. Is there a related request from the Transport Board for these tools to be provided and the related invoices?
No, the tools were given on a loan basis, but if they did not return them within a specific time, they will have to pay us for them.
And just a quick follow-up, were there any other similar arrangements that were made for any other category of good or service?
Well, yes, ma'am. We frequently were requested to bring in certain components for the transport board, which we hold in stock. They asked us to hold them in stock because they had a pilferage problem at the transport board. So as they need the parts, they would issue an order for the parts. We call it a local purchase order.
Okay, so that I understand. So these goods that you were storing were owned at the time by you or by the transport board?
By us, ma'am. They only pay us as they get them. This is to avoid shortage of the parts, because there's a lead time between ordering the parts and receiving the parts.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Brathwaite. I'd just like to always have things clarified in my mind. So the information that you've been referring to here, of those numerous engine deficiencies that you said were not reported on, can you perhaps direct me as to where I could go to get that information, where you obtained it from, so I can get it for myself? All the things that you spoke about here, which I'm sure are recorded, can you just tell me where, if it's public knowledge, I would like to know where I can go to get it the same way in which you have it.
Right. The transport board is the best place to have it from.
You got it from the transport board?
Well, all the service providers, I believe, got
No,
copies of it.
that's not my question. It's specific. I can't speak for anyone else. It's only you I'm speaking with at right now.
Yes,
So I'm trying to find out if you got it from the transport board. You can consult.
Yeah, it was mailed to us.
It was mailed to you. So all the figures you spoke about and the information you have in by mail, so you provide us copies of the mails that have that information, correct?
I will have that, ma'am. These things don't become an envelope, it's a big brown envelope. You take out the package and you discard it. You're talking about 2016, 2017, 2014.
Oh,
We don't have those.
so you no longer have the information. You just wrote it off on the
No, I have to report these things.
So you do have it?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
And the transport board will have it too.
Okay.
That was a document style title?
Sorry, the transport board bus rehabilitation special project report. The reporting period is May 2016 to May 2017. Prepared by David Bartholomew, Fleet Management Consultant.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Brathwaite, there are references made in the report about large balances being accumulated to creditors from the transport board, and that there were some challenges in terms of maintenance schedules and the procurement of new parts as a result of the refusal of some of those creditors to continue doing business. Is there a basis for you, given the 9-month, year-and-a-half wait at times for the payment of invoices, for you continuing to do business with the transport board over time, having to wait for such an extended payment for period? Is there a basis for, what would you say was your reason for continuing to provide services?
Ma'am, it was a good faith act for a greater public good.
You're the owner of the business, Trans Tech.
I'm the managing director, sir.
Is there anybody under you who would have, who can make closer, more familiar reference to the goings-on mechanically, technically at the business?
Well, sir, yes, there was, but we had to let go quite a lot of our staff recently. So we only have a skeleton staff to work here with us. Most of the bus staff we had working with us.
Person who would have been lead person in this regard between 2015 and 2018 is still with you?
No, sir.
Could we ask who that person would have been?
Sir, I would have to check and see exactly the person.
You check and let
that
us
was
know,
assigned. Yeah.
because we may want to invite that
Yeah.
person to come and
Sure.
talk to us. I would appreciate that you keep a very close eye on what goes down, but I think you would also appreciate that if you are not necessarily the head man on the ground, so to speak, you may be unaware of some things. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else? Anything else from any? Would you like Mr. Trotman to ask any question or to make any responses to anything you would have heard? Let me pull the microphone closer.
Sure. At this point, no, sir. No questions.
All right. Anything else you would like to add to what you said, Mr. Brathwaite?
Well, no, but just to say that I appreciate everything that you have done, this committee and Mr. The Auditor General, but I don't believe that he's been given the information and outcome that he needs that's necessary to point out certain matters. I'm not very good. I'm not very good at accounting, so I can't engage him in accounting issues, so I would go to let that pass. Right, thank you.
Anything else? Well, we appreciate you coming and attending upon this meeting. We may have need to call you back if you don't at all mind or object, and to let you know that we will be trying, if you would help us to identify that person who would have been the underground executive with reference to these matters, so we may hear from them as well. Please, at your soonest convenience, as you have intimated you would do, provide us with the documentation. You said you gave to the Transport Board a list of issues which your company identified relative to the problems they were having with the buses. You addressed a letter to the Quality Assurance Department on some matters. And you have this document, this special project report with reference to engines that you've promised to send us as well. So we would appreciate having those at the soonest possible time.
I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the Auditor General and the staff for off their busy time. I want to thank the committee for having me.
Thank you very much, and you, Mr. Brathwaite.
Chair, I confess I recall that decision, but I'm also challenged by the idea of repeatedly inviting persons to leave their substantive duties and then not having the opportunity to prepare, to present. And so if we could at least hear from one more person.
So you want to go beyond the 5 o'clock hour we had agreed? And so we'll take one more person, you're saying, today. Well, whom shall we call? Who would you like to hear from? Well, quality assurance, I suggest, will take a while. Ms. Sue will also, I imagine.
And if I can
while.
suggest, Chair, just as a follow-up, that we take one more person, yes, but also that for future sittings, that we consider inviting fewer persons so that we don't have just as many persons as we're likely to be able to get through, so that we don't have persons repeatedly coming without having an opportunity to appear.
We can take that approach as well. We can take that approach as well, and thank you for that suggestion. I think we invited Ms. Hamlin. We invited Beverly, 5 people today. 5 people today. All 5 turned up, right? Now, Ms. Sue, I imagine, who was financial controller and former general manager, will likely take some time. Quality assurance manager of former time will, Mr. Codrington, will probably take much longer than Mr. Brathwaite. We have the currently serving acting quality assurance manager. The chief executive officer, who's relatively new, is the other person there. He probably is likely to take least time because he's operating in the current frame. He can tell us exactly what they have tried to put in place to correct some of these issues. There's a report, I don't know if you guys are privy to this. There's a report from the Auditor General's office. This is from the Transport Board Department, actually, showing some of their responses to some of the issues, addressed in the, I don't know if members were privy to this.
Mr. Chair, I haven't seen it. I can't speak for other members of the committee, but I would want to suggest that we try to be as methodical as we can be in terms of how we interview persons appearing before the committee. And so the current CEO, who is new in the role, I would recommend that while he may have the least number of issues to respond to in this context, that perhaps it may be more systematic for us to get all of the issues on the table and then be in a position to interview him at the end, Mr. Chair.
That is also sound advice, but if you go out of him, I assure you that those who are left to be called will take beyond, and some may even tend to have to be here longer than Mr. Brathwaite was, because you're dealing with specifics of operations at the Transport Board, especially with respect to the Quality Assurance Department. They will still have to come again anyhow, though I appreciate that it is not a good thing that you inconvenience people by calling them away from their business. The reality is we have to do this. We are not always sure how long it will take. Sorry. Yes?
Just as a follow-up suggestion to what Senator Cummins offered earlier, I think we should take no more than, for this purpose, no more than 2 of the, at a time. We've just established that most of them, apart from a new CEO, are likely to take a long time. So I would recommend that we take 2.
Well, I hear you on that, and I think that that is a prudent way in which to approach the matter, that we ask no more than 2 to come at a time, and if we have to finish earlier than we anticipate, maybe that's a better situation than having people come and go back and forth. I can appreciate that. I do also feel that we're so close to whatever time we quit that it really will not make sense to call anybody here, because we're not going to finish with them. We're going to still have to have them come back again. I think we would have indicated to those persons it is from 2 to 5 as well. So we would have given them a time indication as well. Yeah.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, if I can recommend then that perhaps, given the number of issues that were raised today with the Quality Assurance Department, that perhaps following on to Minister Cattle's recommendation, that the next sitting we invite the 2 persons presently and formally responsible for quality assurance, and then move on from there.
I'm with you on that. There's an objection to that. With you on that. The 2 persons are Mr. Jemmett and Mr. Codrington. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Is it possible to communicate these future arrangements today to these individuals, as in whatever we have just determined regarding the order in which we'll invite them back, because that is likely to reduce the frustration and annoyance that they may experience, knowing that we have a plan for when we are likely to invite them back and that it fits into some structure.
That could be informally or formally communicated to them. I think that is proper. Always, we must bear in mind that we treat people with the utmost respect and decency. And I think we can indicate to Mr. Codrington and Mr. Jemmett that they will be called next time we meet, and that the others would be further informed as to when their presence would be required. I thank you for that. Unless you have something else you want to discuss or raise, I will entertain a motion now that we adjourn for the afternoon. We would have to consider when next we meet. I'm not available on next Monday. I'm not available on next Monday, nor the Monday following. Today is what? Today is the 4th. Next Monday is the 11th. Yeah, I am available 2 Mondays from now. The 18th, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm available the 18th. So. The 18th suitable? You have a suggestion as to date, Minister Jordan? 25th? Did you say the 25th? You were available on the 25th? So the 25th then, Senator Nurse? And it's tomorrow 25th? God willing, 25th. So 25th is the next set date. Mr. Trotman, that's cool with you? All right, we have a motion then, officially adjourned.
So motion moved for adjournment.
And we take it with that motion. That's we're adjourning on to the 25th if we do 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5. We have a second there to that motion? Both seconded, and all in favor, please say aye. And if you are opposed, keep quiet. We are officially adjourned. I thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trotman and staff. And thank you, media. And thank you, members. All right, bring him, yeah. We'll do it formally. I was going to do it quietly, but we can do it. Mr. Trotman, hold a second. Huh? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you again for your ready attendance on this meeting. Thank you for your patience. Let me apologize that we have come about on that point where we have purpose that we would conclude our sittings from between 2 to 5 o'clock. We just formally wanted to apologize for the inconvenience. Some of you have been here before. This is the second time. Out of respect to you and the fact that you have your own business, we have decided to approach this a little bit differently. And we, going forward, will not be calling any more than 2 persons on any given day, because the session with Mr. Brathwaite did take some time. It is likely we could see that type of eventuality again. And we don't want to inconvenience you and show that type of disrespect to you or disregard for you with reference to your time. We will convene again as scheduled on the 25th of November at 2 until 5. And at that time, we will be asking Mr. Jemmett and Mr. Codrington to be the 2 persons to come. I hope you can appreciate that, but we're trying to be as accommodating as possible with due regard to your own schedules. All right? So I thank you. Before you leave, if you care to, you can join us downstairs for a little bit of a drink, nothing strong. Yes, and some eats. And Mr. Trotman, you're your staff as well, as usual. Yeah, there is plenty that is strong. Can you show the folks the way down, please? Not just the lady.